We are currently living through what sociologists have officially dubbed the Great Friendship Recession. But recession might be too soft a word. It's more of a collapse. Statistics show that since the early 1990s, the number of Americans reporting they have zero close friends has tripled. In many parts of the world, we are seeing the rise of the single-serving life. Society looks at a person with no friends and immediately assumes a deficit. Our cultural narratives, from sitcoms to social media, portray the squad or the tribe as the baseline for a successful life. If you aren't part of one, we assume you are a misfit, a social failure, or worse, someone who is fundamentally unlikable. But what if the loner isn't a glitch in the social hardware? What if being friendless is a sophisticated, often protective response to a world that has become increasingly noisy, transactional, and shallow? We are peeling back the layers of the loner archetype to understand the real psychology of people who walk alone. We're going to explore why your brain might actually be rewiring itself to prefer the silence of your own company over the exhausting static of a modern crowd. Before we dive into why people have no friends, we have to master a distinction that our culture gets dangerously wrong: the difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is biological social hunger. It is an alarm system. From an evolutionary standpoint, being cast out of the tribe was a death sentence. To prevent this, our brains developed a social pain response. When you feel lonely, your brain activates the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, the exact same region that fires when you sustain a physical injury. Think about that. Your brain treats a lack of friends with the same urgency as a broken leg. This triggers a cascade of cortisol, the stress hormone. Chronic loneliness keeps your body in a fight-or-flight state, which leads to systemic inflammation. This is why researchers say loneliness is as lethal as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It literally wears out your heart and your immune system. Solitude, however, is voluntary social rest. This is a state of social homeostasis. Imagine your social capacity as a glass of water. For an extrovert, the glass is constantly leaking. They need to keep pouring in social interaction to feel full. But for the voluntary loner, the glass is already full. They have a social set point that is naturally low. For them, every hangout or party is like someone trying to pour more water into an already full glass. It just creates a mess. They aren't missing something. They are simply calibrated to a different frequency. For these individuals, the transactional cost of a friendship, the need to compromise, the scheduling, the emotional labor, is far more expensive than any benefit they receive. They aren't lonely, they are socially saturated. Why do some people find their own company so much more interesting than others? The answer lies in the default mode network. The DMN is the part of the brain that becomes active when we aren't focused on the outside world. It's the seat of daydreaming, self-reflection, and imagining the future. For people who have no friends by choice, their DMN is often hyperactive. While a social person might find silence boring or anxiety-inducing because it forces them to face their own thoughts, a loner often has a rich, cinematic inner world. They are internal processors. They find more stimulation in a private thought, a creative project, or a philosophical inquiry than they do in a conversation about the weekend's sports results. In a sense, their internal dialogue is so loud and so satisfying that a real-world conversation feels like a distraction. They aren't avoiding people. They are just deeply engaged with themselves. This is the hallmark of the creative loner, the person who needs the vacuum of isolation to produce their best work. But not all solitude is a choice of passion. Often, the decision to walk alone was made for us in the nursery. According to attachment theory, the way our primary caregivers responded to our needs created an internal working model for all future relationships. If you grew up with dismissive avoidant attachment, you learned a hard lesson early. When I am in pain, no one comes. Therefore, I must be my own savior. As adults, these individuals develop hyper-independence. They don't just like being alone. They need it to feel safe. They view a friend's request for emotional intimacy as an intrusion or a trap. They might have zero friends, not because they are unlikable, but because they have a psychological security system that perceives vulnerability as a weakness that leads to pain. Then there is the anxious, preoccupied loner. This is a more tragic figure. They want friends so desperately that they suffer from social hypervigilance. They treat every interaction like a high-stakes exam. Did they take too long to text back? Was that a sarcastic look? Do they secretly hate me? Eventually, the sheer cognitive load of managing their social image becomes too much. They enter social burnout. They retreat into isolation because being alone is the only time they don't feel like they are being judged. Their friendless status is a white flag. They have surrendered to the idea that they are unlovable, and being alone is the only way to stop the constant rejection. There is a well-documented yet controversial correlation between high intelligence and smaller social circles. Research published in the British Journal of Psychology, which looked at over 15,000 adults, found a shocking result. For most people, more social interaction leads to more happiness. But for the highly intelligent group, the effect was reversed. The more they socialized, the less happy they were. This is often explained by the Savannah principle. Our brains are still wired for a world where we lived in small tribes, but highly intelligent people are better at evolutionary novel behaviors. They are often focused on long-term, abstract objectives, writing a symphony, decoding a genome, or building a business. Casual social interaction is a low-density activity. To a high IQ person, a 2-hour dinner of small talk is a 2-hour interruption of their deep work state. They aren't arrogant, they are simply protecting their cognitive flow. They are looking for intellectual peers, and because those are statistically rare, they would rather wait for a high-quality connection than settle for a placeholder friendship. Additionally, we have to discuss the uncanny valley of socialization. When a neurodivergent person tries to fit in but is just a little bit off, maybe they speak too fast or their expressions don't quite match the mood, neurotypical people often feel a subconscious threat or discomfort. This leads to micro-rejections, the subtle exclusion from lunch groups, the unreturned texts, the forgotten invitations. Over time, the neurodivergent person realizes that the only place they aren't weird is in their own room. Their isolation is a sanctuary from a world that refuses to meet them halfway. Loneliness is a call to action, but solitude is a call to being. Master the art of being your own companion. Learn to take yourself to dinner, to travel to a new city alone, and to sit in the silence without the need to scroll it away. Because the most stable, most unbreakable bridge to a healthy friendship with others is a solid, unshakable foundation of friendship with yourself. The person who is comfortable being alone is the only person who is truly free.